Hello, I'm Bob Ganzak, and this is Motivation U, the podcast. From the Coaches Podcast Room here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, this is Motivation U, the podcast. And I'm going to share with you today, if there's one podcast that you follow this time and you're into leadership, this might be the most important one ever. My big goal with this podcast is to find leadership that lives next door to you. Find leadership that is in your community. We can talk about the Elon Musks. We're going to talk about Peter Drucker today. We'll talk about a lot of different great leaders. Yet, when you can find those leaders who live next door to you and make a difference in people's lives and in your community, this is the time. So welcome, please, to our show, Freddie Wiebe. Freddie, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Now, Freddie is a long list of accomplishments, one being managing partner of where we're sitting. And we'll get into that. Yet your career started, your life started in another country. Mm-hmm. How did you get to America, and where did your journey begin?
I was born in a country called Ghana. It's on the west coast of Africa. And lived also in South Africa for a long time. And the USA was a destination. It's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a pilot when I was a kid. And I was 100% certain one day I'll be here. And that's how it happened.
So you wanted to be a pilot. Mm-hmm. Was it just to fly a plane, or did you want to fly like jumbo jets? What was your intent when you thought that through?
Airplanes was just a hobby, and learning about piloting when I was a kid, and idling different pilots and sitting with the captains in different planes truly opened the door to something that you just love and you go after and you set as a goal and you make happen.
You came here education-wise, you're looking for something. Were you intent on the engineering degree when you came here? Is that what the intent was?
The intent was to study aerospace engineering and go through the route. I was a little bit too big to make it to piloting school and be accepted once done. So in the back of my head, going in engineering was the right route to go. I got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and then a master's in aerospace engineering. And then I got my pilot degree after that, through the process and through my internships and through my job. That was probably the right road. That just happened that way. Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting time. When we think about the aeronautical world, with NASA was at a peak at that time, you had some interaction with them also. Can you share that with us, how you had time with NASA?
Sure. So I took an internship with Morton Thiokol, who worked on the boosters for the space shuttle program. When I joined my college, I went to FIT in Melbourne, which is a pilot school and an engineering school. It's a very small school that was funded by NASA. And the reason I chose FIT was I thought NASA's right there, and that's probably where I'll end up at. And it was a great decision. Very small school, but a very good school. I did get a few internships up at the Cape throughout my junior year. We did a lot of projects together. Our senior project was managed by someone with NASA as well. And then I took a full internship with Morton Thiokol in Utah, and that's where the company that produced the booster for the Space Shuttle Challenger, which blew up in 1986. And I was part of the team that studied to what happened as well as a project. And then I took a full-time job when I graduated my second degree. I took a full-time job with Lockheed Martin. At that time, timing was off. I worked for a company that was really parallel to the space program, and this is when the government had made the decision that, the space shuttle program is done. There's a few more launches after that, but I jumped on a pink slip and left Lockheed Martin to do Domino's.
And we'll get into that story because that is another whole entity. And as I said earlier, if you're looking for leadership tips, you're going to hear them over the next 45 minutes. Freddie, when you first came to the country and you were going through school, where did the lessons in leadership start? Did they start back in Africa? Did they start when you came here? Where did you really dig your teeth into leadership?
As you know, and most leaders know, leadership is taught. No one is born a leader. No one has the skills to be a leader. You learn it through other folks. You learn it by reading. You learn it by learning lessons. I were in Ghana, for example, the politicians were poor leaders. The country was corrupt, just like most third world countries. I lived through a military revolution in 1979, and you learn about the new person and his leadership skills. And leadership doesn't mean if you're a leader, doesn't mean you're a good person. If you're a leader, you're measured by the followers that follow you. There's a lot of bad leaders out there. Hitler.
Well, you mentioned that right before about the three most charismatic leaders of the 20th century.
I'll quote a Peter Drucker quote.
Please.
I'm a big Peter Drucker student, and I live a lot of his principles. And, one of his quotes, one of my top three quotes for him are the three most charismatic leaders in this century, and this was the last century, inflicted more suffering on the human race than almost any trio in history. Those were Hitler, Stalin, and Mao. What matters is not the leader's charisma. What matters is the leader's mission. And those three folks, just to segue from your question, had more followers than any other three folks until their death. The only two people that exceeded them actually were on the other side of leadership. Princess Diane and Mother Teresa had more followers than them two, and those were in the right leadership bucket. But I just want to clarify, leadership doesn't mean you're a good person either.
And it is still gathering your followers.
It is.
And finding the word we use now, our producer Evan would probably share that with us, is the tribe, because that's what we look at as now is your Facebook group or whatever. You're building this tribe, and that's what those individuals did. Now, how did you get into the transition from aerospace to pizza? How did that change?
I get that question a lot. It's pretty simple. I had delivered pizzas in college. I worked on the weekends delivering for two different companies, the last one being Domino's. And as an engineering student, you're taught how to process things, how to look at the end results, how to, in the job I was, your safety factor is one. Errors cannot happen. And I looked at Domino's while I was delivering, how can this process be more effective? How can it be more efficient? How can it be more productive? All the little principles I've been taught in school, and I'm bringing it to work on the weekends. I delivered pizzas Friday night and Saturday night to make up some money, for the rest of the week and go to school and do my homework. And as those ideas kept multiplying, I just had all these ideas of how much more this Domino's store can be more efficient if we applied all this engineering principles to it. So those 3 years of delivering pizzas put me in a position to just get somehow intertwined and kind of in love with the industry a little bit, the restaurant industry. So after leaving for 4 years and getting a real job and truly realizing I'm not a guy sitting behind a desk, and it was great on launch days, launch weeks, we worked on the field, but the rest was sitting on a computer next to unhappy people and in a cubicle. And it got worse and worse. And then when I took a pink slip, I started looking for what's next. And Domino's was next.
Domino's. Now, am I wrong with this? You requested the weekends to deliver on. Is that?
It was the non-school days.
Okay.
So I couldn't work during my school days. I'm
going to stop you right there, because that tells me a lot about you, the focus. Now, nowadays, we look at, I've got a stepdaughter that's in college, and we look at kids, look at things a little differently. They look at the money, the income, and they don't think of what the mission is all the time. You didn't let the mission get away from you. Your mission was the education.
Yes, and you have to think that way, and that's what success looks like. If you look at every successful grad student that's doing well in their job, they focused on what's important. And what's important is getting a degree, getting the right grades, and really be in a position to get the right job and make the big money.
When we look at delivering pizzas, I mean, when my dad retired, he delivered pizzas on the weekend just because it was extra money, and he didn't like hanging around the house all the time, because he's around the house a whole lot. What was it? I mean, it's taking the pizza from the restaurant or from the facility to the house. What were those engineering tips that got into there that changed that?
I mean, first you got to give credit to Tom Monahan, who created the Domino's delivery system and took a very small store in Ypsilanti, Michigan that was delivering and called Dominic's, and turned it into an empire today by really moving food from A to B. And back then, the American consumer was not what it is today. Today, delivery is humongous. It's almost $1 billion industry every day, and people are delivering from all sorts of things today, from Amazon to Whole Foods to 65,000 restaurants every
dog
single
food
day.
And everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it was intriguing. It's like, the simplicity of making a pizza in 8 minutes and getting it to you in less than 30 minutes. Okay? Back then, pizza was 30 minutes or free.
Yes.
The delivery had to be brought to your door in less than 30 minutes. So to answer your question from an engineering standpoint, how efficient can you be? How well are you in getting into the traffic patterns, into the technology? And then GPS came in, and then apps came in, and computers and online ordering. You have to be on top of those things. And today, it's amazing to see what Domino's has become. They're truly a technology company and not a food company. They're more about the technology piece, and they interfere with that more than the actual food piece. The product happens to be food and pizza and chicken wings, but think about it. Domino's is a technology company.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Now, back then, when you were building those systems, 30 minutes is not a lot of time to start from scratch. It's not like those pizzas are sitting in the oven waiting for somebody to buy one of those, or you're trying to sell them what you have in stock. What was the vision for that to happen?
There was a lot of good folks behind the Domino's vision. I was just a small part of it. Back then, I was just a driver, learning the systems and learning, taking what they provided and really making it happen, kind of thing. But they've created a model that worked. It worked back then, and it works today. At the end of the day, you do whatever it takes to move object A to object B and move it within 30 minutes or less.
We're going to talk about this too. Just the name of your marketing company, Make It Happen. And that's what you always have done. You've made it happen. Where did Peter Drucker come into your world? What part of your life did he get infused into Freddie Wiebe?
As I got into the Domino's world, I needed to learn leadership, and I needed to learn how to become a better leader and how to become a better Domino's owner and manager. And you start learning about different leaders out there and studying them and reading about them. And as I read about Peter Drucker, I started reading more and really learned, he was the easiest person to read and understand in a way where it translated leadership into a very simple reading. After reading for an hour, you just felt good. You felt like I learned something. Well, a lot of different folks were very good too, but there was a little bit of translation piece. There was a little bit of complication piece. There was a little bit of understanding piece. With Peter, if you read any of his 39 books, his principles were simple. And besides the easiness of understanding his concept, what he meant and what he really, Peter Drucker is the founder of business, of management. He's, there's a lot of things that Peter Drucker is known for, but he's known for one thing, and that's he's the father of business studies in the United States.
I did not know that.
Yep, he was a consultant and wrote about 39 books, and he created the Drucker theory, and it's all about, your business should be about your people, about innovation, about marketing, and then about finances and making money, which goes a little bit against what Wall Street's all about.
Not always a popular approach in today's world.
No, not always, and he paid that price. But, Drucker was considered a visionary for his recognition that dedicated employees and put a big flag on employees are the key to success of any corporation, and that marketing and innovation should come before worries about finances.
I see in my world a lot of parallels between Mr. Carnegie and Mr. Drucker. You're a fan and a student of both. Do you see those similar parallels, and how do you see that combining together, those principles?
Absolutely, and that's a very good question. So to answer that the right way, from a leadership standpoint, they're parallel and almost the same. One of Peter Drucker's quotes is, management is doing things right while leadership is doing the right thing. And Carnegie believes in the same thing. You got to do the right thing all the time. All his principles are about doing the right thing. So when it comes to leadership, they're the same person, I think. Same mindset, same theories, same principles. When it comes to management, I think that's where Peter had a different route, and really his position in his company and being able to consult all those large companies in the United States back then really created why he is known as that person that created management.
We're coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, right here in the Coaches Podcast Room. I'm with Freddie Wiebe. Freddie with Make It Happen Marketing and managing partner of this fine restaurant. And you can find us on 39 different locations as far as podcasts are concerned. Thanks to you, Freddie, and your company and organization that helps us with this podcast. We're on Facebook, YouTube. Just such a wonderful growth market for the world. And when we're talking about leadership, it's great to get your message out to more people. How did we get to this point at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill? Where was the germ, that thought process that started this, and how did that get going?
It was an idea 5 years ago. So, Coach wanted a museum/restaurant, a place where he can display his trophies and his winning accolades, and not for him, but for Gator Nation, for the fan base, for his grandkids. His daughter Amy, I believe, came up with the idea, and he requested that. He says, let's find a restaurant and put all those trophies in. And after looking and digging, really nothing resonated well in a place where it would carry his legendary name. And finally this location in Celebration Point was available, and this was under construction to a restaurant called Rascal Flats.
Okay.
And they folded before the construction was complete. Ryan Frankel, Svein Dribblebolken, and myself had a discussion one day on a business trip, and said, Coach Spurrier's looking for a restaurant. And Svein said, well, I'm looking for a good restaurant. And Ryan, as his marketing rep, says, hey, maybe there's a fit in here. And that's how the idea was born.
Mm-hmm. That is, and then it's kind of, I'll say ironic that the three of you are the partners with Coach Spurrier.
We all joined hands and really spent a couple of years on research. Coach does not like to fail. The whole Gator Nation doesn't want him to fail. He's a winner, and we all know that. And really spent a couple of years trying to get as much consultancy and research done and data to what this place should look like. Mm-hmm. What size, what colors, what decor, what type of food, what kind of strategic plan to put together where this thing does not fail. And really everything you see today, this whole gem of a place, from location to the 2-story floors, to the museum, to the 19,000 square feet, to the excellent food, to the bars that you see in the rooftop bar upstairs, Visors, which by the way opens this Thursday officially, is the grand opening, is a culmination of all that research that we spent for 2 years before we even start building it.
It's amazing that when you look at it, and the one thing that when I think of you, Freddie, and our relationship over the last year, is it's the attention to detail. And when you come into this facility, that attention to detail is just absolutely amazing. Tell me about that thought process and leadership. Is, a lot of people, I've been guilty of that myself, where you have these broad stroke ideas and they work for a short period of time, but it's that detail-oriented attention that gets you the long-term growth. Where did that develop in your world? Was it the engineering education, or?
Well, it's my engineering background helps, yes, but this is a culmination of many talented folks that worked on this project. Okay. From the architect to the 16 consultants, to the designers, to the consultants, to the ownership, a lot of good minds that all sat together and worked collectively to agree on what the strategic plan should be. Mm-hmm. In the engineering world and this aerospace world, failure is not an option. Yeah. Okay?
No. Yeah.
You do everything right, and when things fail, and we've seen some things fail in the aerospace world, a couple mm-hmm. shuttle launches, a yes. couple airplane accidents, it's because someone made a mistake. Every pilot, before taking a flight, goes through a checklist. And that checklist is really your strategic plan of that flight. Mm-hmm. And if you choose to bypass the checklist or take a chance, an accident might happen.
Yes.
And if you treat a restaurant or any business you're in, and anything you choose to do, whatever business you're in, if you treat it otherwise, or in a different way, you have a higher chance of failing. Mm-hmm. So here's an industry that fails 60 to 80% of the time, the restaurant industry. Okay? Yes. Failure is mm-hmm. imminent in most cases. When you go into celebrity restaurants, failure is even more imminent. You have to do your homework. You have to listen to the data, and you build your plan according to that data. And it's that simple. I cannot make it any simpler than that. Make sure you have the right plan, stick to the plan, and you will not fail. The data says you shouldn't fail. And then remember, coach comes from a sporting world, from coaching, from playing football. And in football, the folks that think that way tend to finish up in the top 4 every year and possibly in a championship game. Mm-hmm. There's no difference between what Nick Saban thinks, what Belichick thinks, or what a successful restaurant owner thinks, or what a consultant thinks, or what a CEO thinks, or what a professor thinks, or what a pastor thinks. It's all the same. The principles are the same. Do your homework. Have a good plan and stick to your plan and be able to pivot when you need to pivot.
Interesting. Interesting insight into how your mental side of that is. And when you got into Domino's, and we're going to jump back here a little bit, but when you got into Domino's, I mean, you got into management and then into ownership quite quickly. I mean, in a relative period, it was quite quick. What was the process there, and who saw in you, what leader saw in Freddie Wiebe that this man had something that they needed to capture?
My franchisee back in Melbourne, his name is Rich Price. He's the one I had a discussion with and hired me as a manager. And then I became a general manager of one store in Merritt Island.
Okay.
And then I became a supervisor, and then I got into marketing. And then after that, I was qualified to own a store. I did my classes in Ann Arbor and got qualified to franchise a store. And one day he brought me up to Gainesville, and on a game day, and we visited the Domino's location. And he's basically on our way back we went to the football game. He goes, "Did you see the potential?" I said, "Yes." And that's how we ended up buying the Gainesville market.
Okay.
We bought it together. He did the investment, and I bought him out a few years later.
And then you grew that from the one store
Mhm.
to how many did you have at the peak of ownership and franchises?
So I had store 5150, which owned Southwest 13th Street.
Okay.
I was slash owner slash manager of it when we first started. Then I bought the other two stores from him in Gainesville.
Okay.
And then those three got remodeled and rebuilt. We ended up with 11 stores in the Gainesville area, and then one store at the Santa Fe College cafeteria. And then in 2012, we added 8 locations at the University of Florida athletic department. We were in a swamp. We had 6 locations, O'Connell Center, McKeithen Stadium, and became the official partner of the Florida Gators. So altogether, we had about 18 stores in the Gainesville area. And then in 2016, Doreen, my wife, and I decided to sell the company and focus a little bit less on different things and traveling, what have you. So we sold Domino's in February of 2016.
Wow. Okay. And it's amazing when you bring up the marketing side of it, because a lot of people get a little mixed up on marketing, branding. Can you give us the official thought process of what is the difference between the two?
I mean, not only will I give you that, but I want to explain it's probably from my world of marketing, the biggest misconception from a business ownership standpoint. Folks cannot differentiate the difference between marketing and branding, and they convolute the both together and mix them up, that it becomes an issue where most people think marketing is advertising. It's not. It's partially advertising, but there's, branding should be, success happens when branding and marketing are parallel, and they move in the right level at the same speed. And I would say maybe 3 to 5% of businesses do that today. And that's a common mistake that should be addressed by the business owners if they want to see success. But to answer your question, marketing is defined as the set of tools, processes, and strategies you use to actively promote your product, service, or business or company. While branding, on the other hand, is the marketing practice of actively shaping your brand. Branding is about defining who you are as a company. It's intangible. You can't touch it. You can't feel it. You have to. It's like reputation. It's a reputation of you.
Yes.
What are you known for? It takes a long time to create a brand, and it takes a very short time to destroy a brand. And as you study the world's largest highly branded companies, whether it's Nike or Coca-Cola or Disney, it took a long time for them to get there, and they work very hard in staying there. It's easier. It's so hard to get there, but it's much harder to stay there, kind of thing.
I want to touch on that when we come back from break. Just on that subject right there, we're going to take a short break here. You're listening to Motivation U, the podcast, live from the Coaches podcast room here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill at Celebration Point.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Hello, Bob Ganzak for the Dale Carnegie course. Because of the great strength that we've had in the last couple of classes here, we are having another Dale Carnegie class starting September 21st, Tuesday night, the 21st, from 6 until 9:30 at Hotel Indigo. It's one of those things that's going to change your life. It's going to really give you the tools where you can improve at business, in your relationships, just in your love of life. So you will be able to sign up at jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com, find courses, find the one that is for September 21st in Gainesville. Hotel Indigo, 6 to 9:30. 8 weeks in a row, incredible energy, atmosphere. You'll love it. Sign up today for the Dale Carnegie class. Thank you.
Oh my gosh! I can't even believe this! Look what you have done to my truck!
Excuse me, it's your fault, it's not my fault.
Yes, it is your
No,
fault!
it's not, no,
I am
it's not.
calling Jeffrey Meldon from Meldon Law.
So I'm gonna call Jeffrey, my husband.
Meldon Law, this is Jeffrey speaking.
This crazy lady here,
honey,
this crazy lady, he might...
New client? Yes, but this one might be a little tricky.
Welcome back to Motivation U, the podcast. I'm Bob Ganzak. My guest today is Freddie Wiebe. We were talking about marketing right before we went to break. Yet on break, we had to talk about Opus Coffee. And it is just one of the best cups of coffee I've ever had. And I love coffee. I mean, it is just fabulous. Where'd you find that?
It's a powerful local brand. As we studied what coffee company to partner with, even though we had great opportunities financially to partner with larger brands and a highly branded coffee brand, we chose to stay local and go with Opus Coffee. They do a good job. They're from Gainesville. They're all over the Gainesville cities and places. They have several stores, and their coffee's good.
You can get it here. Can you buy it in stores? Or I see you can buy the Coach's own brew there that as a ground bag.
There's a ground bag and non-ground coffee bags available to be
Okay.
purchased here at the restaurant at all the Opus Coffee locations. I believe they have 14 locations as well.
Now, a little tidbit on that. When you take a good look at the bag in the front lobby of the restaurant, you'll see it's batch number 11.
That's
Which,
right.
those little attention to detail, those little things that don't get by.
It's called marketing.
It's marketing. And we were talking about that before we went to break. And there's, you were talking about, you get that one chance. Disney, I mean, the companies, Coca-Cola, they've had hiccups in their lives. They've had things happen, yet they've been able to keep that integrity and the brand name so strong. And there's one brand that keeps on coming back, and it's like people keep on throwing darts at it, and that's the Jordan brand. What do you feel is the main reason that Jordan brand continues to grow? I mean, we see it on our Gators shirts. You and I both enjoy the University of Michigan too a little bit, and we see it on those jerseys. How does that brand continue to grow?
I mean, we're sitting in a restaurant of a legend But when it comes to sports and basketball in particular, the top of the top is Michael Jordan. What he's done to the sports in the U.S. and the world, globally, nationally, internationally, however you spin it. Michael Jordan is a legend. And what he accomplished, his championships, the way he won, the trouble he went into personally, the family issues, the dad, the wife, and all that, those are issues. And those are called obstacles that usually will make a person fail. But he was standing that, and that's probably the most important thing in leadership. You know, people go today on social media and read about people they follow, and everything looks great, but there's always issues. Yeah. Behind the scenes, there's always issues. Everyone has problems. Everyone goes through obstacles. Everyone has failure points. How you react to that, how you tackle an obstacle, how you tackle a problem dictates your success. And Michael Jordan was able to succeed and jump all over those hoops and stay successful at what he does. His restaurants has failed 3 times. In our industry that we're in, his restaurant has failed 3 different times, and he's bounced back, and he's back at the top. And with his name comes his brand. They're very parallel, because brand is about the person. In this case, the Jordan brand is about Michael Jordan, and Nike bought the rights to that and somehow found a way to jump all over all those, obstacle points and make it a very successful brand. Everyone wants to buy a Jordan shoe.
Yes.
Everyone will pay premium times 10 for a Jordan shoe. Everybody will purchase a Jordan shirt before
stand in line for those shoes.
And that's what branding's all about. This is one of the commutative top stories of branding is, and the lesson for me, and I want to make sure I repeat this, there will be mistakes. We will all have issues and problems. How you react to them and you grow from them will get you back to the top.
And that was what I was going to ask you about when it came to, if you were the marketing director for the Jordan brand, or if you were a consultant to Michael Jordan himself, I don't think you could tell him any better than how he's handled some of those things.
Correct.
He hasn't made a big deal about them. He kept stoic in his own way, disappeared when he needed to disappear, hung out with his friends, branded with his other friends, that, alliance with other people at times. So, he's handled it pretty darn well.
And he knew when to stay quiet and when to talk. And that's another thing. Communication is a key component of successful leadership.
He had some great leaders in his life. I mean, Dean Smith was, a great mentor to him. And I'm sure that a lot of individuals that were whispering in his ear were pretty, be who you are, put that smile back out there. You and I both had, and we didn't touch on this before we started this podcast today, so this might catch you by surprise. But you and I both had a link to another man who, if he would have been in this era, I wonder what he would have done, and that's Muhammad Ali. We both had brushes with him, short periods of time that we got to interact with him in special ways. He was the brand before Michael Jordan, and
he was. And if Ali back in the 60s and 70s was a byproduct of the 90s and today's world, he would be a branding machine. Without technology advances, without social media, he is a brand. He's one of the top brands, and he branded himself.
Yes, he did.
He created a brand about his own aura, kind of thing. But there's another winner, and the reason he's beloved globally is he knew how to win, and he was so brash about it because no one knew about him until he did what he did, kind of thing. But to be able to win and represent the U.S. in the Olympics and stand for his political views and change his religion and do everything that he stood for in today's world, social media would be very against you doing that. We live in a world today that's completely parallel
Conform.
to that, but it's so divided.
Mhm.
But he was able to stand upon himself, and people love him for that.
It would have been interesting to see him with a Twitter account.
Yes.
Back in,
But
if Twitter was there in the 60s,
yeah.
it would be fun to see what would have come out of those fingers.
But he achieved the same results.
Yes, he did.
Because of who he is.
Mhm.
And it comes down to he chose how to communicate properly and utilize the right timing of it, and not just to say things, but to know what to say at the right time and take advantage of twisting. He used the art of war as well. Coach Spurrier uses
Yes.
that, and be able to play mind games with the words, and the competition and his opponents. He went in their head to win some of those matches. At some point, in some matches, Ali was not the better fighter.
No.
But he won mentally.
And just the rope-a-dope
Yep,
itself was
absolutely.
he outthought them in that area. And you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. There was one thing that really impacted me with the time with Muhammad Ali, and that was he always knew the right thing to say to somebody. He made them feel like the most special person on the planet at that time. An infectious smile, the right words, and he focused on you. He wasn't looking to the next entity. And when I was just reading your talk about Peter Drucker in the article that you wrote that got picked up by some magazines. Be involved with your team. It doesn't mean get involved with your team. Be involved with your team, and that's focusing on them. Share your thoughts on that leadership trait.
I mean, leadership is several facets of different things you have to do right, and one of them is influencing other folks to do the right thing, inspiring them, not tell them what to do, but show them how to do it by leading that way of doing things. But one of the most, leadership is many, many things. I can go ahead and tell you, leadership is integrity, leadership is character, leadership is delegation.
Integrity way up there. Yeah.
Leadership is influencing. Leadership is about self-awareness and feeling positive about yourself. Leadership is about gratitude, about positive attitude. But to me, the most important characteristics of true winning leadership is communication. And you said it in a different way. I'm going to repeat it because it's so important. It's not what you say. It's how you say it. It's when you say it. You have to be a master of taking time to realize, when do I tell this person this? In today's world, you say something negative to someone or you criticize, they mentally can't accept it. Some people just can't. And it's part of our mental health issues. But how was that born? When did these issues become a problem in today's world? It's because people did not know how to communicate it properly. When we speak, we're not clear. When we speak, sometimes we're not saying what we want to say. When you want to say something to someone and criticize them, here's a Dale Carnegie principle that comes to life right there. It's how you criticize someone. Dale tells us, don't criticize.
Don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
Take it and make it a positive thing. That's all communication. And if in my book, communication is the most important piece of leadership. And if you study 100 successful folks, I don't mean successful as in millionaires or CEOs, people that just do well in life. Okay, they could be authors, they could be husbands, they could be fathers, they could be, garbage company workers that go home happy every day.
Yeah,
They
I
have
agree
that
with you.
same principle in mind, And I want to quote a Peter Drucker quote because I'm a man of Drucker and
Please do.
I'm a student of Drucker. Is the most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. How many times we don't allow ourselves to read what's in between the two lines. And that to me is very critical to leadership.
A big part of it is when in the radio business, I used to say to people, we're in the communication business, and what we're doing the worst thing about is communicating. When any radio station that I was involved with broke down, it was a breakdown in communication. And when you're a real good listener, you hear what people don't say. You
Absolutely.
You see it. Mr. Carnegie said that there's 4 ways that people kind of see us. It's how we look, what we do, what we say, and how we say it. Kind of what you were saying earlier.
Yep.
And it's one of those sarcasm. It can be the cutest, most fun thing. In a leader, it can be one of the most dangerous weapons because you think you're being funny, and yet you don't know how that person is taking those words and what their journey is about.
Yep.
And those are tough things. You had mentioned to me earlier before we got into the podcast today about how Mr. Drucker was loved in Japan. And I was speaking with a leader whose company was bought by a Japanese company. And I asked him, I said, what is the big difference that you've seen? And he said that in America, we are known for our quick wit. It's how quick you can respond to something. And between the stimulus and the action, if you can elongate that is how people are judged. And I thought that was very unique. Your thoughts in that is, I mean, we're known as, you got to be quick. Yet in leadership, you really got to think through and make the right decision.
So I'm going to answer the question two different ways.
Sure.
First way is Peter Drucker is beloved in Japan. He's the top of the thinkers of the world. He's a thought artist. He's a thought thinker. And they follow him way more than we do in America. And that partially is due to the Wall Street philosophy. Peter always was about innovation, entrepreneurship, about people before bottom line profits.
Mm-hmm.
And Wall Street did not buy into that, so somehow that got convoluted in the US. But Peter is beloved across the whole world, specifically in Japan. But to answer the question, in a second way, and I'm going to say second because it's really the true way, and it's a fact. Okay? When Peter was in his 40s and 50s, America was number one in the world.
Mm.
Okay? I chose to come to America because America was the greatest country in the world. This is the country that you come in, work hard, and you make it.
Yes.
This is the country, everything was the best, the cars, the buildings, New York City, the movies, the actors. I'm someone that lives in this third world country, and I'm looking at this greatest thing in the world, and I want to come to it.
Yeah.
Well, since Peter has passed, he passed in 2005, and since I've been in this country for almost 40 years, things have changed. Okay? There's a reason Japan has better vehicles, better movies, and bigger things, and you travel and everything is digital, and you check in and they read your ID without even pulling your card, and you don't need to fill out paperwork. And they're more advanced from technology. Everything we buy is from Japan, the good technology pieces, televisions,
Yes, it is.
vehicles, Hondas, you name it. There's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that. And I'm
that-
answering the question in a very truthful way,
Okay.
but that's a fact. They lived those principles the last 40 years.
What is the reason?
It comes down to making choices. Our leaders, choosing financial gains over the principles of long-term success.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's, why is there a Honda that's 20 years old on the road today? And if you see a 20-year-old American car, you go, holy, whoa, it should be in the museum.
Well, and it probably is in a museum if you're seeing it,
Yeah,
because
why?
they're just driving it one day.
They just do it better. They build it for the long run. They think that way. They think long term. They think more success. Why can a fourth grader in Japan teach an eighth grader in the U.S.? Why?
Yep.
And I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying facts.
Yep.
How can that be?
It's a
How
shame.
can this country not be the best, that used to be the number one in the world in almost everything, be 26 in education, fourth in producing vehicles, fifth in producing technology? Why?
It is an enigma.
I answered your question
Yes,
in
you did.
probably a segued way, but it's, to me, I wonder about these things. And then I ask those questions every day. I don't know that anyone can have the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
We can all guesstimate. The world we live in today is so divided that different minds have different philosophies to why. But the fact of the fact, there's a scoreboard, and the scoreboard says we're not leading the score.
You and I were just thinking about a very similar thing, because I'm going back to my podcast when Coach Spurrier was on, and he said to me, I wasn't popular in the NFL because preseason games, they were keeping score and I wanted to win. Mm-hmm. We're hearing that about Urban Meyer now. Sports writers crushing the man in Jacksonville because he wanted to win preseason games. And I'm from the world of Coach Spurrier. If you're going to keep score, let's win. And we've lost that. Participation trophies, is a big part of that, from the standpoint of, if you participate, it doesn't matter if you excel. It doesn't matter if you work hard at it. It doesn't matter if you achieve anything great. You were there, man. Great. You showed up.
And we can go back and point at several winners out there. John Wooden, he won the same way, with character, with people, with development. Urban Meyer, he won. He might have, gone a little bit over the line, but he won. Nick Saban is in the championship game
almost every
other year. And you really study how and the whys. It's all similar. The man works hard, recruits hard. During recruiting season, he's traveling from city to city, trying to, sell his program to every recruit he can, and he recruits the best. At the end of the day, he has one of the top recruiting classes every single year, and it's pretty simple. Hence, you go out and win. So it comes back to a business. If you hire the best people, you are going to win. And it's a mentality thing. And it's no different than Carnegie or Drucker, or Sun Tzu. These are people you emulate yourself after and you read about and you learn, and you have to live those principles. You have to practice them. It's not just words or a poster on the wall. You have to, every single day, wake up, get out of bed, put your foot down and say, I am going to make it happen.
Yes.
And that's what those people do. That's the common denominator. It starts up here.
No 0 days, as the podcast that our friend Jeffrey Meldon sent me over the weekend. No 0 days.
No 0 days.
And, I try to every day get up, hydrate, educate, meditate. Those three things. I want to get my day going in the right direction, get the right fluids into me, get my brain going, and get my relaxation to the point where I'm focused. And that's just how we've got to start living. We've got away from that.
Yep. And it's not, I don't want to have a wrong misconception of what I just said. It's not work hard every day. You got to know when to work hard. You have to know when to play hard. You have to do both. You have to balance your family and work.
Amen.
Those are prerequisites, okay? You got to be able to do both and do it the right way and schedule it accordingly and have it, set where you do so. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty simple formula. The common denominator, people work harder and they're able to balance their life better.
I find it interesting, just to share with our audience, last night, it was, I don't know what time it was. If it was 8:30, or I don't know when it was, but I just had sat down on the back porch with my pen here to start taking some notes and working on today's program, and my phone rang, and it was Freddie Wiebe driving home. And I don't know how many times that has happened between us. Is you can always be focused, always using your time, even if it's shutting the radio off and just mentally letting your brain go quiet for a while, or if it's using your drive home to accomplish something. You can always use your time in a positive way.
You can, and that's probably segues to something that's very important in today's success world, the time management piece. Not only managing your personal time, but I'll see a lot of folks that will, spend 6 hours watching a couple football games, but will not spend 15 minutes reading something. Readers are leaders. And whether you read on an iPad or digital or you listen on Amazon, it doesn't really matter. Just soaking information in and learning from other folks is a good way of staying in front of things, But the same folks that complain about that will spend time in the wrong place or too much time on that. You have to be able to do both.
Yeah.
And that's a balance as well. That's a science. It's
Yeah, I can. Yeah. You and I work together on putting the Dale Carnegie classes together. We have another one coming up next
Tuesday. A week from
next Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. The
And we have a
21st.
few seats available. If you're interested, we have about 5 seats available for the next class. Evan, if you can put the information on the screen, how people can register, or click on the link right on the bottom here, and you can be in our class starting this coming Tuesday. We're at Hotel Indigo. The class is from 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock every Tuesday night.
9:30.
9:30. I'm sorry.
Because then everybody go, you told me it was
6 to 9:30 every Tuesday night for 8 weeks.
Yes.
It's the best investment you can do in yourself is taking a Dale Carnegie class.
And that is my point. You talked about people that won't read an article, but will sit and watch 6 hours of television. And I watch people that, will invest in some of the most crazy things. I mean, spend, I'll say it, $5,000 on a purse, yet they won't spend a penny on their own education moving forward. And that just boggles my mind. I think everybody should take a percentage of their income every year and reinvest it in themselves. But again, in today's society, we're looking for somebody else to do it for us. I don't want to. I mean, if my boss is not going to spend $1,795 on me taking this class, does that mean that I'm going to stop my education process at that part? I mean, crazy. So, I mean, it's just that investment in yourself.
And not only just at Dale Carnegie, you spoke
Everything.
You spoke about Japan. An average Japanese takes 5 seminars on their own a year. They go out and find courses to self-help themselves, to think better, to mentally be stronger, to educationally get better, and to improve their self-being.
Yes.
Okay? The average American takes less than a half. And that's a problem that starts within us.
Yep.
Here's an opportunity for a course. I'm not here to sell the course, but it's a great opportunity, whether your business invests in you taking it or you taking it yourself for the 8 weeks and become a better person. I can tell you, I took the course in 2001, okay? And it's the best course I've ever taken. What it's done for me as a person, as up here, is mind-boggling, the results. And again, it's a Dale Carnegie course. It's offered across the country, across the globe. I think there's almost 10, maybe 11 million graduates now taking it. But if you study successful people, almost every successful person has taken that course at one time in their life.
It's 1991 for me, a long time ago. And I hear the excuse, I'm too old. Our friend, Jeffrey Meldon, just had number 77 last week, September 2nd. Was that last week? I believe it was. Jumping in there and being in the next class, like his son Kerry said on my podcast. Sign up for the class. You can take it with my dad. That's just it's that desire to reinvest in yourself. Couple minutes left. Greatest leaders that you've worked for or interacted with.
Greatest leaders I worked for, I mentor from many aspects of different leaders. Coach Spurrier is definitely one that taught me winning and winning mental attitudes. Coach Don Shula, I mentored from to be disciplined and to stay on the course and do the right thing. My dad taught me to work hard and never, ever go off the line of integrity and taught me what integrity is all about. But there's other folks, too, that influenced me, and that's part of continuous learning. As you read about Dale Carnegie or other folks that have done well, you take that one notion of them and then you use it as a catalyst to make you a better person.
You have 2 sons. In a short period, what is the advice that you give to them as far as leadership, motivation, and living that positive life?
That's probably the most important thing, your sons. And for Ronnie and Danny and the whole family, it's to do the right thing. Do the right thing. If it's sports, be very good at what you do and do the right thing, treating your friends the same way. If it's school, do the right thing and listen to your teachers, do your homework, follow up on instructions. If it's your friends, make sure you treat them just like the way you want to be treated, the golden rule. But you have to mentor your kids just like you mentor your friends and just like you've been mentored, or else you're not doing your number one purpose of being a father. Fatherhood is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, it is.
But you have to also give back to them and give them the time they want from you, and be with them at certain times. As busy as I can be sometimes, I will always make time to be with them.
And we do make mistakes as dads too.
Of course.
You just keep on, like Michael Jordan and his brand, you have to keep on going.
There's no one in the world that has not made a mistake.
Yeah. Freddie, I appreciate your time. I mean, I appreciate your friendship also. I really enjoy this, and we're going to do this again. Evan, I appreciate your time also, my friend. Next week, we have a week from today, on Thursday the 16th, we'll have Laura DeBella in here with us. And no, that's the 23rd. I'm sorry. That's the 23rd is 1 week. Today's the 16th. Where did the month go? My goodness.
Yeah, time flies.
So the 23rd is Laura DeBella. Then in 2 weeks, on the 30th, we'll have Stephanie Stuckey, the CEO of Stuckey's. And that'll be a great show to be a part of. So from the Coaches Podcast Room here at this incredible, yes, sir.
Can I say one more thing?
You sure?
Real quick? You know, this is a very important podcast, not just today, every week. You know, leadership is a very not usable, not listened to podcast, but I ask everyone listening to share it with your friends, share it on your social media, let people know about it and let it grow, because we need this. What you're doing is an asset to our community, to our world, and we need more podcasts like this.
Thank you, Freddie. Grow it organically, about leaders that work next to you every single day. From the Coaches Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, this is Motivation U, the podcast. For my good friend, Evan Miller, our producer, have a wonderful day.